Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the November 10th Longmont Transportation Advisory Board meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. And let's begin with a roll call.
Chair Kalkoffer.
Here.
Board Member Starrett.
Here.
Board Member Wickland.
Here.
Vice Chair McKee-Burrows. Here. Board Member McInerney. Here. Council Member Yarbrough. Here. We have a quorum.
We acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous people. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the first people have with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that happened when this land was taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. Next, if we can review the minutes from the what was that meeting? October 13th meeting. Are there any comments or corrections?
I will motion that we approve the minutes from the October 13th, 2025 Transportation Advisory Board meeting.
That motion is seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Okay. Now we'll move on to communication from staff. Where would we like to begin? Ooh. Sorry. First, we have a special presentation that we would like to present to Councilwoman Yarbrough for her service on our Transportation Advisory Board meeting. We appreciate your service that you provided us in your tenure here, and we're truly going to miss you while you move on to better things. Thank you so much for all your service. Should we take a picture?
Oh yeah, we should take a picture.
Take a picture. Should we take a picture?
Yeah, let's do a picture.
Well, we'll get him in a minute.
I was the only one with the big bottom. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Alrighty. Now we'll move on to communication from the staff.
Okay, great. I'd like to call up Caroline Michael for the first update for the NTMP update.
Hello, good evening, Transportation Advisory Board members. This is kind of like a short, kind of off the cuff update about the neighborhood traffic mitigation program. There's a lot of background there. It's a current program that we have for residents to fill out an application and apply for. Usually the end goal is speed tables, but we're actually trying to get away from maybe asphalt speed tables being the end all be all of the program. It was written in like 2006, courtesy Ben Ortiz, who did a lot of work on it in the past, but it is in need of an update. Right now we're trying to incorporate a lot of resident feedback and feedback from other staff. Trying to eliminate some of the more unattainable, like average daily traffic thresholds, arbitrary speed thresholds, although there actually isn't any speed threshold defined in there now. Trying to get closer to a kind of quick solution program, because right now it's sort of lengthy, requires a lot of meetings. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, really. But this is a program meant to focus on our lowest volume, usually streets, usually ones that aren't going to have necessarily the statistics that support, shall I say, like on traditional, it's not going to address like Pike Road, where you're going to have like really statistically significant speeding on any of these streets particularly. So we're trying to kind of acknowledge the reality of that while also offering solutions in a much more timely manner. So open to any questions or feedback.
Would this be neighborhood roads in particular?
Yes, like local streets and maybe some like neighborhood collectors, because we do still have collectors that do have, you know, kind of like direct driveway frontage.
And then what would be some of the mitigation? Would it be speed, stop signs, things of that nature?
Potentially, a lot of it would probably be like paint. So like painted curb extensions, delineator posts are kind of the two big ones that are like quicker and easier to implement. There might be some applications of always stop warrants being applicable, crosswalks in some cases. But again, the lowest volume local streets probably aren't going to necessarily need all those interventions. So it's going to be case by case, but.
Great, thank you.
Oh, that's really low. Are you going to be incorporating Vision Zero principles in the new plan? And I'll let you answer that question first because I forgot my second question.
So yes, that is a goal. Again, this is sort of, I think of this as like kind of the lowest volume. So these typically aren't like the high injury network roadways. This isn't Main Street. This isn't Nelson Road. So it's not going to have like the really high impact that, you know, a huge arterial CIP project might be intended to have, but we're trying to acknowledge that, you know, people are more likely to use multimodal transportation options such as biking and walking when they feel safer.
Okay, I remember my second question now. With the new TMP, are you also going to be incorporating that as well, like doing the flip over of the priorities from car to pedestrians as a high priority, like finishing sidewalks and making sure that there's good crossing places and those types of things? Even though it's low traffic, it's still, as you mentioned, it's people use other modes more often than on those.
Yeah, and that's something I probably need to look into more with Kaylee with like neighborhood bikeways and where we've kind of decided through that process where we need some more of those treatments. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is this also like the type of place where people could be like, hey, this intersection needs daylighting?
Yes, I would like that to be. Lighting I have more control over like the signage and the striping side of things than necessarily the street lighting, but yeah, definitely worth considering.
Street lighting is good. I meant specifically like setting up the intersection so that you can't park right up on the intersection and you kind of force people to park a little further away from it.
Oh, okay, then in that case, yes.
Okay.
Like kind of the painted curb extension,
Yes,
maybe
exactly.
maybe going to maybe having concrete if it's needed, but again, trying to get to the quicker solutions, and sometimes also the concrete has some unintended consequences with drainage, so it's like if we can avoid that, that would be great. But
Absolutely, starting quick is, and then moving to more permanent solutions later is always a good idea. Okay, I'll move closer when I'm talking.
Okay, thank you.
I had another question. Are you going to be accepting public feedback and comments so like you can identify areas that need particular treatment, like which spaces you want to have those quick changes over?
so are you like asking whether or not the program document will have
Yes.
some engagement going into it? That would be great. We'll probably take it to this board once we have more of like a complete deliverable with like a policy and a procedure. Beyond that, I might discuss maybe taking it to Vision Zero Task Force or another group of that nature.
Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking like you might be able to identify like, okay, these are the streets that we have to focus on first and make those a priority. That was my thinking.
Yeah, and this program is more aimed to address areas where we really won't have large CIP projects larger Vision Zero projects. It's really for low volume local roads that residents feel that there is a safety issue, speeding issue, that they can submit a petition to accelerate some projects that normally wouldn't happen on those streets. So the current program, in the about 3 years I've been with the city, we've had several petitions come in, and none of them have ever met that criteria. So we're trying to change that. So the new program is aimed to be more of a community-focused program and more community engagement program, where if we do put measures out, it'll be based on community feedback and buy-in from the actual neighborhood versus traditional 85th percentile, ADT, and speeds. So we're revising that program. We'll bring that up with the Vision Zero Task Force as well as the TAB Board for recommendation for approval, as this new process will be a new policy that will have to be approved. But we're looking at more feedback, trying to be faster response for concerns, but less avenues to say no to things and more towards yes.
I think this is amazing. Great job. Just because I'm so excited about it, when do we think this might go live? I know there's a lot that has to get done to get to that point, but when ballpark do you think it would be implemented and available to the public?
It's a good question. I think we could probably have, earliest we can maybe have like a program document. An application is probably early next year, January, February. But as far as actually getting the boots on the ground is another, because I mean, traditionally that would be the people who actually install our signage and striping as operations. So we do kind of need some framework to allow them, so that make sure they have like the capacity to maybe meet demand. And if we're not hitting that, then we need to figure out what we need to do in order to help facilitate that. So
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to call Cami Edson up for the next update of the e-bike e-moto safety campaign.
Should I just do all of them in a row that I'm going to do? Sure. We might go a little out of order from the agenda, we realized. Well, good evening, TAB members. I'm Cami Edson, Transportation Planning Manager. First update I would like to give you tonight is I don't know that we've brought to your attention since City Council made a motion to call an e-bike, e-moto sort of work group to be. So that work group has already come together. We're looking at existing policies in other places. We're looking at education that's going on in other places. We've been talking to our national partners already about what's the best way to approach the legal pieces. And so recommendations from national advocates and state advocates is that there is a lot of pending legislation that people are expected, or that is expected from the groups at the national level around reclassifying what an e-bike is to make it more sense, and using a new classification called e-moto that doesn't exist yet, but it will hopefully in the future, that will then allow the consumer protection agency that places the parameters around what can be sold as a toy versus not. And a lot of the changes around removing the fake pedals, making sure there's lights on bikes, those sort of control mechanisms that would be in place. So we're waiting for those national efforts to happen. So then state law will change. And then when state law will change, then the local municipalities will update their language to align. What we don't want to have happen is that Longmont ends up with a different policy than Erie, than Niwot, than Boulder, that when people pass through invisible boundary lines, they're beholden to different criteria of what they can do on trails or what is allowed on trails, what type of bikes, what type of motos. So we really want to make sure that we're aligned at the national and state level. So we're looking at what we can do at the local level now to make sure people become better aware of what is currently legal and allowed when and where, because we think there's a lot of mismatch understanding in that department, while we're also waiting for those national and statewide efforts to catch up. Then we will also realign our policies once those pieces fall into place. So really just wanted to put on your radar that that internal work group is looking at this. We'll be actively working on it for as long as it takes. Hopefully we'll be rolling out some safety education pieces around what is legal, what is not, as well as just how to be a safe driver around bicycles, how to be a safe bicyclist around other, the whole goes both ways, not just targeting one group over another. So when, again, just as Caroline mentioned, when there's something for you to react to, I expect that we'll come back and we'll have some proposed language or some proposed projects for you all to give some feedback on sometime in 2026. Don't know exactly when yet, but wanted to put that on your radar as we move into January and we talk about work plans. So any questions about that before I move on to the next topic?
Thank you, Cammie.
Sure.
Can we just have a brief, is there a working definition between e-bike and e-moto?
Yeah, it's going to come down to how fast they can move.
Okay.
So it's going to be based on speed limit. And I think right now it'll be 20, don't quote me on this, but it's 20 or 25, somewhere in the 20s would be I think it's 22, would be that kind of line of definition, which we know some class 3 and some might be able to do that. So the idea is not to make it more confusing on the e-bike side. It's really to sort of clarify the bicycles that are out there right now, or what people are considering the motorbikes that have no clear definition in any of the legislation or enforcement or any of those pieces, how it can be sold. And right now they're being marketed as toys, yet they have giant motors and they can go very fast and they're very dangerous and they don't have lights and all of that. So it's really meant to help clarify the e-moto category, not to necessarily mess with the class 1, 2, 3, but if anything, make it clear what the definition is between those pieces.
Will there be even more descriptions of the class 1, 2, 3?
I think they're working on improving those, not necessarily making it more confusing or changing those altogether, but improving those so it does become clearer to folks.
Okay.
And then better requirements for retailers of how to talk about them when they are selling them, and then what can be sold as a bicycle versus a motorized vehicle versus a toy. Because all of those things are part of the challenge right now, is that people are buying them legally and using them for valid reasons, but they're not necessarily being used all safely or correctly.
I think this is great. Also, I do know e-motos can also be retrofitted to go even faster.
Yeah,
So-
and that's one of the
so
things
that's
that they're working on at the legislative or at the federal level, is to somehow require or remove or change, I think, the capability to retrofit some of those elements that are currently in place right now, making them more dangerous to use than as intended.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to this because I have talked to a lot of residents that are concerned, whether they're walking, driving, or on their own pedal bike. There
It's
are
a hot
issues.
topic, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There is a regional work group at the Boulder County level of a bunch of different municipalities and stakeholders also tackling this at the same time we are within Longmont, as well as a lot of the statewide bike advocacy groups. So it's on everybody's radar. It's just not the easiest thing to tackle right off the bat, because those legislative pieces need to change at the federal and state level first to make it easier for municipalities to react. So we'll do what we can in the meantime with what is within our control, while we wait for those other pieces to fall in line as well from the federal and state level.
Well, let's hope everyone on top's working. So,
There you go.
Cammie, you mentioned education. Do you know if there's any sort of driver education in our local high schools?
So driver's education now has become a privatized option. It is no longer attached to the school system per se. It's up to families to access it on their own. So through the schools, not necessarily directly. If a school district or a school themselves chooses to do some education on it, it might be roped into their active transportation wellness policies, but not here within St. Vrain Valley School District. There are a lot of educational options out there that are pre-made online. That's what we're working and compiling and pulling together, so we can start getting some of that message out to the community of where they can go to find the existing resources. So that's part of what the internal work group is looking at right now, is what can we put out sooner rather than later that makes sense for Longmont.
So you're saying that we can work on the education part first and enforcement after the criteria and the laws catch up?
Yep.
Gotcha. Is it something that we can work with Boulder County? I know you said we don't want a hodgepodge of Longmont, Lafayette, Erie, all of them to have their own rules, but can we push Boulder County to have some kind of temporary pending rules or guidelines for e-motos while we wait, because we know how long it takes federal government or our state government to act? Is there something that we can do with collaboration with Boulder so we don't have a hodgepodge of regulations?
So again, that at that regional level, there's a work group being pulled together on this, and sort of we're all in agreement based on recommendations from national advocacy partners not to do that. Again, because people are crossing Weld to Boulder lines or Jeffco to Boulder County, right? So they're in the same boat we are, just at a bigger municipality level. So we're all kind of working on what can we do from the legal perspective, which is not in our control necessarily yet. What can we do from the legislative, and how can we help advocate for things at the federal and statewide level? And then how can we work on education? And so right now, that education, what's legal, what's not, where can you go, what should you be doing, how can you keep yourself safer and others safer, that is what's in our control right now. So we're all in it together of trying to sort of work through and advocate for those things happening at the state and federal level as fast as possible. And we are all talking to the same partners at the federal and state level to make sure we're in the loop.
Gotcha.
Together.
And then my last question, what is the criteria for vehicles to use public roads? Like, what is it, a certain mile per hour? Is it horsepower? What is the criteria to allow a vehicle to use public roads?
To use public, that's an interesting question. And Ben, you might be able to help, because I think the criteria for a vehicle to use the road, there is no what you can and cannot do if it's deemed a vehicle. Bicycle and speed limits is a different, if it's designated a bike and speed limits, that's a different thing, whether it's a trail or a road, there's a difference. So I'm trying to make sure we answer your question, what you're really trying to get at.
Oh, got it. Thanks. Ben Ortiz, transportation planner. So that's actually a difficult question because you have specific regulations depending upon the type of vehicle. So toy vehicles are strictly not permitted on public right-of-way, even on sidewalks. They're allowed on a designated play street or private property. But then you have e-bikes, for example, class 1, class 2 e-bikes. They can ride anywhere in the right-of-way. They can ride on the greenway trails. Class 3 e-bikes, however, they can go where class 1 and 2 e-bike can go, except for a greenway trail, unless the local governing authority specifically states that it's okay. Here in Longmont, that's not the case. So we've not passed an ordinance saying that class 3 e-bikes can ride on trails. These e-motos, I don't believe they're allowed anywhere in the right-of-way. Then there's another classification of vehicles. They're called LSV, low-speed vehicles, and they are allowed on certain types of roadways of a specific speed or less. And then there's another kind of low speed vehicle. It's I think it's called a ULSV, ultra low speed vehicle. And those are allowed on even lower speed streets. So to answer your question, you have to look at the vehicle specifically and the regulations that are attached to those. Now, the low-speed vehicles, for example, they look like golf carts. They're not golf carts. Golf carts are not permitted on the roadways anywhere. They're allowed on golf courses. But a low-speed vehicle has all the things that a normal automobile has. They have a VIN number, they have headlights, they have brake lights, they have safety belts, they have windshield wipers, et cetera, et cetera. So to really answer that question, you have to look at the vehicle itself and the regulations that are attached to those vehicles.
Thank you for that explanation. That was very helpful.
Just keep in mind, there is no definition for e-moto yet, right? That classification doesn't formally exist yet. It's being referred to in the field, and that's the legislation that people are working towards, but that's part of the challenge is that classification isn't a formal classification yet.
But when we start that education campaign, we can say, hey, these are example of toy vehicles. These are not allowed on public right away.
And so to the challenge of what Ben just explained, like trying to get that in a form that's going to make it easy to understand to the public is the work that we are going to work on now, is sort of how do we start getting this education out in a way that makes sense to folks and is easily digestible to the community, because it is very confusing and there's a lot of different terms, right? You have the laws here and the laws there. What can you do? Which types? It's a lot. It's not as easy as one might think it might be, as Ben just explained. The terms, the definitions, the differences, and who can do where. It's a lot of work to sort of put it in a form that is going to be easily digestible.
Hi, Cami. Couple of questions, and this might be a little early to ask you, so if you don't know yet, that's fine. My first question is the plan to add some additional restrictions beyond what you've already talked about, like in terms of like e-motors will no longer be allowed anywhere on public streets, and things like that? Is there a plan to add those restrictions once all this preliminary work has been completed?
Honest answer, to be determined. I do think all of those will be considered with a to be determined outcome.
Okay. And my second question is enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be enforcing these particular new regulations as they come up? Like, is it going to be parks, or who would it be in the city?
So part of the work group is obviously our law enforcement folks. It is our parks teams. It is so that's the work group that's being pulled together to look at all of this, because the reality of how do you enforce it, who will enforce it, are questions that everyone's is asking internally too. So again, to be determined, but all of those are being discussed and will continue to be discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Might move on to the next update, because I think I've got one more. Just want to make sure I don't skip anything on the agenda. Is RTD directors and RTD routes. Want to just say thank you to the TAM members who made the trek down to the RTD board meeting recently about the fast tracks, updating the fast tracks report. Your effort and your time were greatly appreciated by the directors, by the other community members that were present. As well as I think the mayor also reached out and gave her thanks. So just kudos to all of you, and thank you as TAB members for putting in that extra time and effort. And as you represented yourselves as citizens, just thank you for that. Just as a reminder, the routes that have not been moved and the bus stops that have not been moved from 8th and Kaufman, from Bross, will be moving back to Kaufman come January when they change their run board. So all of the local buses, whether they're regional or local, will be realigned together using the new stops and stations at 8th and Kaufman. And Kaufman will be used from 9th all the way down to 3rd, as that will be done in a completed project. So the idea is to get them off as much, the buses off of Main Street as much as possible, as soon as possible, until the first and main transit station is completed. So once that realignment happens in January, that Kaufman will be used from 9th to 3rd. It will remain that will be the route until the first and main station is completed. So there shouldn't be any more stop changes or schedule changes between the January run board change and then when the first and main station opens up. So it was a little hard realigning in August, as we know, when some of the local routes moved, but not all of them did. Some of the regional routes moved locations. So January, they'll all be realigned, which should be much easier for members of the community to make their connections between local and regional buses. So it's a good thing.
Have we informed the businesses of the changes?
Yeah, so they have been, especially from the Kaufman side street, for the project of what's going on, and they will also, the community as well as businesses, as RTD is finishing up their comms, Transport is finishing up their communications packages, we will make sure that those get out to the businesses and the local residents who are directly affected, as well as the larger community. So those sort of communication packages are coming forward soon.
And how much notice will those businesses get? Do you know?
Well, there's RTD who posts their schedule, and then the City of Longmont will do some complimentary communications as well as soon as RTD puts theirs out and Transport puts theirs out. And that should be coming in a matter of weeks at this point, yeah.
Great, thanks.
And just on that note, I know tab member Ross or Sarah might be like to the 8th in the bike shelter.
Yes.
Yes, got damaged during the construction. It's been repaired, but there was an issue with the door lock still not working. The press release about it finally being fixed should be going out in a matter of days. Boulder County is just waiting for confirmation that the door fix is completed, tested, and should be good to go. But that bike shelter should be up and operational within less than a week at this point. Figured you'd like to hear that.
Yes,
update.
that is good to hear.
Yeah.
Also, RTD has published at least some information about this service change publicly on their websites. So businesses that are looking for it have probably already seen it. But it is something that we can also share with them. Like, hey, here's what's happening. Here's where RTD has posted about this.
On all of the existing bus stations, I think they have had the posting is up on the post itself has been up for a while. But that doesn't mean everyone's going to look at those yet. So we need to do some additional communications.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is it. The last thing I wanted to put on your radar, it's not on the agenda, but at the city council meeting in December, I think it is December 18th. No. December 18th. I'll double check. In December, I think it's the second council meeting of the month. The consultant and project manager is going to be taking up Colorado 119 and Hover, the intersection that you all gave feedback on a couple months ago too. The CDOT team, I will say, has really heard your feedback as well as staff's feedback on how to improve multimodal access and crossings and safety in the area. So that will be coming up for council review. December 16th, not 18th. Sorry, wrong day. So just wanted to put that on your radar.
Sorry, Cami, to go back to RTD. What's the next step for the RTD and pushing them on fast tracks? Have you had any more feedback from PEC or from Karen Benker?
Yeah, so I think the City of Longmont will be drafting a letter as well as the mayor has already submitted the Northwest Mayor and County Commissioners Group has already submitted a letter on their behalf. All of the individual municipalities are up next to submit letters to sort of reiterate the messages that they've been hearing about, complete the plan as intended, use the funding as intended, develop a complete plan as part of this update since the plan wasn't really present. So those same messages that were carried forward in the previous RTD meeting, we will be sending a letter directly from the City of Longmont as well. So there's sort of the power in numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
While we're talking about RTD routes, any news about the bus ride to the airport?
So communications have opened up with RTD and DIA as well to come together and have a conversation about what would it take to bring a bus back. So
when is that happening?
I've got to
TBD?
get it scheduled. TBD. So yes, I've got the staff. I'm waiting for the staff lists from each agency to see who do they want included in each of in the meetings. So once we get all of the staff names that they're interested in making sure is at the table, we'll initiate that conversation.
Is there anything that you need from the public to provide support or
That's a good
feedback?
question. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think at this point, because part of it is going to be an exploratory conversation about what is needed to get there, what data or what support or what would be. So it's a very much of a brainstorming initial conversation. And I think once we get a little more clarity on, is there a path forward that we see based on what DIA might need or what RTD might need or what City of Longmont might need or some of the northern communities up here, then I think you will definitely go back to the community for input on. But I think it's just too preliminary at this point.
Okay, because the last thing I want is for them to say, oh, there's not enough ridership.
Yeah.
During your conversation, and the conversation
Which
just
is why
stops.
we're bringing DIA into the conversation to say, hey, if ridership alone from the public isn't enough, is there another alternative to look at employee public shared version potentially?
Is there any plan to include like Lafayette or Erie in that meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think part of that is that what would it take? What would we need? How many groups would need to be involved, way too, like routing, nowhere near knowing, having any of those answers. So it's really just to get to the table to explore the idea of what would it take? What do we need to look into more? What data do we need? Because we know ridership alone from just Longmont might not be enough, essentially, to get a bus warranted back. So all to be determined, but at least the conversation is going to happen. So that's a good step forward.
I'd just like to introduce a concept, and I'm not expecting you to respond this evening. The concept would be Skyride Longmont. That would be expanding our current Ride Longmont to go to the airport. Maybe RTD could contribute some money, maybe not, but that might be another alternative.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely worth considering. And just so you know, too, RTD is one of the agencies that is currently paying for Ride Longmont right now. So
maybe they could pay a little more for Skyride Longmont.
Heard. Yes. Thank you. Great idea. Thank you. I think I'm done with my updates.
Well, one more.
Oh, sorry.
Tammy.
Yeah.
Sorry. For RTD in this meeting, can you kind of explain how they determine projected ridership? If that's a determining factor to make a route, like even though it doesn't exist.
That is one of the questions that I have on my list for them, is to explain to us what is the modeling clearly, so we understand the modeling that they're using when they talk about their ridership to use to justify. So I don't have that answer for you today, but it's definitely on the list to ask RTD.
I would very much like to know that.
Sure.
Because I think that's always a hurdle, and sometimes they're usually wrong. Just like Ride Longmont, we're proving RTD wrong. So we are way better. So.
I will say, just so you all know, like RTD is very interested in having this conversation, as I want to see what will it take to make it work. So are the DIA folks. So I think people are very interested in this concept of figuring out what it would take, and is there a shared transportation demand management approach with public use in some way as well. Because DIA has had some success in having somewhat of the concept of off-site transit hubs pick up employees to bring them into their parking, or to bring staff to DIA because they're having parking issues and flow issues and all of that as well. So they're very interested in exploring the idea with RTD. RTD was also interested in exploring the idea with DIA. So I think this is a good starting group. It will likely expand to more, but just to see what kind of information have we not pulled together, not looked at in the way that we might need to look at differently to get to, is this a viable option or not to consider? But it is a conversation with them nonetheless about getting a bus back to DIA, so that it is moving in the right direction from my perspective of they want to come to the table and have the conversation with us. So that's a good thing.
Cammie, this board sent a letter to RTD earlier this year, and it did address Skyride. And to address board member Wickland's comment, that letter suggested license plate surveys at park and rides currently served by buses traveling to the airport that allow overnight parking, to determine how many of those vehicles are coming from Longmont. Mm-hmm. And that's a long-established type of transportation management study. And it seems like it could be pretty useful to provide backup data for a Skyride service.
Yeah, and to that point, so DIA just onboarded their own consultant to do TDM work, to do the transportation demand work. So they have a TDM plan that they're just now looking to implement. And so City of Longmont is getting roped into their TDM plan work. And I think that might be, we'll learn more as I, attend their meetings to be, what are the strategies? What are their data collection methods? So I can definitely bring it up there again too, as their consultant team, meaning DIA's consultant team, who's looking at transportation demand management strategies, to make sure they're aware of the letter that you all submitted if they aren't already, and make sure that that is an idea that gets put forward.
Cami, last question. My wife and I go to the airport quite frequently, and one of the things that we've noticed is parking at DIAs also becoming very limited. So I'd like to push DIA as well to say, hey, look, you're starting to run out of parking facilities and parking. The way that you're kind of solving the problem is increasing the fees for parking. So I would like for them to also have a solution to help us drive less to the airport.
Yeah. And I can tell you the transportation planners for DIA are interested in the very same things, which is why they're working on this TDM plan and have hired a consultant to help them get to those solutions. So they're very much aware of that and very much would like to have that conversation with us and others around how do we bring other options to DIA to reduce the carload, which is why they're doing their very own TDM plan. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So next we have Ben Ortiz to talk about the bike parking regulations.
Good evening, Transportation Advisory Board. My name is Ben Ortiz. I'm Transportation Planner. And I'm going to give you a really brief update on bike parking. So when the Transportation Mobility Plan was passed by or accepted by City Council, they had directed staff to come back with an ordinance revising the current bike parking standards. And so they wanted us to amend the existing standards so that we would apply bicycle parking based on land use type. So just to give you an understanding of how it's different from what we have today, when a new development comes in, they will propose a certain number of motor vehicle parking spaces, and then our requirement now states that they have to provide 5% of that motor vehicle parking in the form of bicycle parking. So in other words, if they provide 100 car parking spaces, they have to provide 5 bicycle parking spaces. But that's rounded up to 6 because the city's standard is the inverted U bicycle rack, and the inverted U bicycle rack is equal to 2 bike parking spaces. So, so some of the changes that are going to be included or that we're proposing to include will be some definitions. Presently, there are none in the current bike parking ordinance. We'd be adding a cargo bike requirement, a long-term bike requirement. So right now, the inverted U rack is all that we require, and that is basically the equivalent of a short-term bike parking requirement, whereas a long-term bike parking requirement would be something like lockers, for example. We would also require covered bike parking, and we would allow for existing motor vehicle parking spaces to be converted to bike parking. And then, of course, we would be adding a new table stipulating the required amount of short and long-term bike parking spaces. One of the other things we heard is that we'd prefer that the bicyclists prefer that the bike parking be at the level of the street or the parking lot, so they don't have to go up a curb. And for those instances in which the bike parking is at the level of the sidewalk, above the parking lot, we would be requiring ramps. So all of those things are included. Those are all things that we had heard from the Bicycle Issues Committee that they wanted added, and so we have included all of those requirements in our bike parking ordinance. And I don't know if I did mention lighting, but we would require lighting above bike parking areas. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Ben. Where would the long-term bike parking be required?
So one of the things we had thought about was, well, what if an office building, for example, allows room for long-term bike parking? And we decided not to include that for one very specific reason. So when the planners that do the plan reviews of a new development inspect, they usually inspect only the exterior. And so what happens is that once a building is given their certificate of occupancy, the planner really no longer has any authority to go inside the building. There's really no reason for us to go inside the building when we do our initial inspections anyhow. Everything that we inspect is outside the building. So in order to ensure that the development is meeting its bicycle parking requirement, we would be asking that everything be included at the exterior of the building so you can see it from the street level, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yes. I guess, I'm thinking of situations that I've seen or where friends around the world live, and you think of multifamily units, apartment units. Is there any rule for that for secure storage where it's secure shared bike parking?
Well, part of the long-term bike parking requirement could include a number of different things. And so it could include shelters, for example, lockable shelters like what you see over there at 8th and Kaufman, as well as the bike parking shelter out there by Oscar Blues. So those are a couple of examples. I did a site plan review for an apartment complex. I think it was located at 9th and Pace, and they added some locker-like areas. They were behind like some, wire mesh doors. The bikes were hung vertically. These weren't things that we asked for, but they were out of the weather, and these were lockable doors. Because it wasn't something that we asked for, and it went over and above the regulation. We were perfectly fine with that. The concern is that, again, that if they do it in the interior of the building, we don't have a problem with that. If they want to do it, they can, but we can't determine that they're continuing to do so, and unless we get a complaint, we have nothing to fall back on to say, hey, look, you guys are out of compliance with your site plan. You need to fix this.
So it's out of their good graces if they decided to do an interior just for aesthetic purposes.
I mean, they could do it over and above what the regulation would require, and we would not have a problem with that. If they wanted to put in an interior room for bike parking, we have bike parking inside across the street in my office. We think it's great.
Yeah.
And we formerly had bike parking out in the courtyard, but all those bikes were subject to rain, getting rained on, so we moved some of the bike parking inside. It doesn't meet our bike parking requirement, but that's where people prefer to put their bikes. I think that the lesson is that a lot of people would like the opportunity to get their bikes out of the weather, if they can. And so that's one of the reasons why we're including the long-term bike parking requirement. And most of those do provide greater weatherproofing than just an inverted U-rack.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and I also failed to mention that we're proposing to bring back the ordinance to the TAB, the full ordinance to the TAB, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission in the first quarter of next year. I'm still working on some of the graphics. Those need to be worked out. So not quite done. I think the language is largely done, but we have a little ways to go.
Hi, Ben. I know, it's a surprise. I'm asking a question. I'm presuming it's very similar to the version that Bic already looked at, the one you already have.
That's correct. With the changes that the Bicycle Issues Committee requested of us.
Okay.
So there were some things that weren't there that you all wanted that we added.
Okay, great. Question about the long-term bike storage shelters. Will they be accommodating all types of bikes, including bikes with like trailers, or also cargo bikes, of course, because, you know, that's what I have.
Well, now that I think on it, I don't know that that's clear, but we could make that clear and ensure that they are.
Yeah, because I'm imagining like families who live at apartment buildings will have a trailer that would attach their bike, and they're going to need some space to do that. To be
Yeah,
able
of
to
course.
park their bike there. Because if it's all those vertical ones, then that's really hard to do with the really heavy bikes. So.
And e-bikes.
And e-bikes as well, yes, of course. Okay, thank you.
Ben, I don't have a question. I'm just wanted to say that I have to leave. I am supposed to be in a meeting, Longmont Housing Authority meeting. Commissioners are going over there. So I know city councilors are walking by like, what is she doing in there? So, but we're having that tonight in a few moments. So I just wanted to let you know why I'm leaving, and thank you again for all of your expertise and your intuition and your knowledge and everything. It's been a pleasure being on this advisory board with you. I'm looking forward to all the things you're going to do with Vision Zero, and also with First and Main, and all the things that are going on in the city of Longmont. And I know that you will make it better for the future, because I will be holding you accountable. All right. So thank you again. I appreciate my certificate, and so proud of each and every one of you, and that you are serving our city, your city. So thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Hi, Ben. I had another thought. What about, so this is all for developers to put in for this bike parking. What about if a resident wants to add bike parking, like in front of this, on the street or right in front of their apartment? Would those regulations cover them, and the ordinances, I mean, and would it allow them to, like if they wanted to add a bike shelter outside their residence because they can't put it inside, could they do that?
So I guess it would depend on the scenario. Because if, for example, it was considered a residential single-family detached home, for example, and it's on their own lot, then what would happen in that instance is we would apply the accessory use standards, because it would be considered an accessory structure. And so it would just need to meet those accessory use requirements. They could probably do that now if they wanted to, under the existing regulations. But again, it would just need to meet those accessory use standards.
Okay, what about if it's on like city property?
Well, a private citizen would not be able to do anything in the public right-of-way without the city's approval first. We would have to look at what they're proposing to do and then see if it would be okay. I mean, and then we'd have to kick it up the chain and see. So we'd have to look at something like that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I'm just thinking like, you know, maybe a duplex or something wants to add some bike parking, and there's not space on their property, but maybe they want to do it like right in front and it's public right away. Then I'm just wondering if there might be a way to add or have easier route for someone to be able to do that without having to go through the chain that you're describing.
Well, they could call me first. and I'd be happy to chat with them about it. But of course, now the new regulations are basically saying that it would be okay to convert a motor vehicle parking space to bicycle parking if, for example, they have a surplus of motor vehicle parking in their parking lot or in their car park. And so that was for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, we would have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. The thing is that inverted U-racks, for example, they don't require a ton of space. And so a lot of them can be fit into pretty small spaces. In a case where there isn't room, there may be an ability to make some amendments to existing landscaping to pour a pad and add 1 or 2 bike parking spaces. But again, we'd have to look at it and make sure that they're meeting their landscaping requirements, that they're not running afoul of those landscaping requirements. But it's something that we could feasibly do.
Okay, just think to keep in mind. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Okay, and now we'll open the floor for public comment. If you signed up, please come up and state your name and your address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Sharon O'Leary, 530. Sharon O'Leary, 534 Emery Street, co-chair of the Historic East Side Neighborhood. The Historic East Side Neighborhood's boundaries are 3rd Avenue, Emery Street, 9th Avenue, west side of Martin. The main concern for our neighborhood is semi-tractor trailers, delivery trucks, and we're not talking UPS or FedEx, but food carriers, liquor carriers, and gasoline carriers are coming through our neighborhood. This problem escalated with the building of the boutique hotel when you cut down the right turn only onto Kimbark and put stakes up to ensure it. So now those delivery trucks aren't able to access Kimbark Street right here at 3rd and Kimbark. So they go on Waze or maps and they come down Emery Street. The other thing that happened, so our neighborhood was organized in 1981 before there was ever a neighborhood group organization. Then they made 3rd Avenue an enterprise zone. So now we have delivery trucks that say deliver to Georgia Boys and then come straight down north on Collier and then head west up 6th Avenue to go to Pump House, or as we lovingly call it, Restaurant Row. So our concern is that you have to proactively put that lane back on Kimbark, because with the onset of a boutique hotel, there will be way more deliveries coming in than ever has been before. The other thing we're most concerned about is adequate parking. There were 117 spots before that hotel was built. And now the hotel is almost complete and way less than 117. Yet there'll be laundry staff, cooking staff, concierge staff, and who knows what else staff. And they'll be parking in our neighborhood. So that's going to cause other problems. I want to thank whoever came up with the idea of putting a 4-way stop at 6th and Kimbark. We could use some more on our block. Collier and Emery Street are like a freeway. I'm so happy I'm going to volunteer our neighborhood to Caroline Michael as coming and brainstorming together on how we can make the world a safer place. Our neighborhood is intergenerational, and we want it to continue to be that way. We don't want a lot of people who want to just live close to downtown. To be continued. I do want to thank you, though, for your volunteerism. I think boards are one of the things that make Longmont the strong city that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Aaron Bankson. I live at 1525 Irvine Avenue. I've been a resident here all my life of 40 years. Which, looking back at that history, is something I want to address. About 20 years ago, when US 66 was widened at 287 to put in 4 lanes, and that median pretty much blocked all traffic from able to make a left-hand turn prior to the intersection. And at that time, Longmont Dairy had a storefront there. It was more than just for those of us who lived here to buy milk, ice cream, other local produce. It had a very helpful point for tourists to learn about Longmont, Lyons, Estes Park, and Rocky Mountain National Park. And when I was looking at the detailed plans for the additional widening of 66 and the use of 3/4 turns, this is where I just want to emphasize looking at second and third order effects of how these turns are going to affect the businesses, the churches along that route, and where traffic could end up flowing through unintended consequences of, for example, Light Bridge only having a right turn out. A lot of them will probably go down Francis Street and 21st, which are collectors not designed for hundreds upon hundreds of vehicles all at once. So just in any of our future planning, just looking at those second and third order effects of where traffic goes, how it affects businesses, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy. Whoa. My name is Amy Wilkins. I live at 3404 Featherreed Avenue. But I'm here really because I am the owner of Spicy Bikes, which is an e-bike shop. And I was informed by Matthew Popkin that there was going to be some conversation about e-bike regulation. And I really want to be part of that conversation is really why I'm here. When I was listening to you talk about it, I think that an understanding from a retailer's perspective about what people are purchasing, what e-bikes are on the market, why people ride particular sorts of e-bikes, what the difference is between how people ride on trails versus what that pathway beyond 119 between Longmont and Boulder will require. Things like that could be really important to understanding the kinds of regulations and how they might matter. I'm absolutely 100% in favor of having this conversation. I think it's super important. I talk about it with my customers all the time. I talk to customers all the time about the differences between e-bikes and e-motos. It's a conversation I have all the time, and I have conversations all the time about safety, and I've had educational conversations. So I'm here because I want to be part of the conversation, and I just wanted to introduce myself. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's all public.
We actually have one more. Got an email from got an email from Dina about a variable message board on Kaufman Street. So that was placed by a city contractor for the Memorial Day parade. However, our city code doesn't allow for blockage of sidewalks and bicycle lanes. So it's a common thing we have throughout the city of trying to educate our contractors to put them in places where it doesn't block vehicle, bicycle, or pedestrian flows. So we'll be looking at those in better locations in the future and try to educate our contractors better for putting stuff in locations where it's appropriate. But if you do see that anywhere in the city, it's usually a reoccurring issue as contractors tend to think they have the best idea to put things in areas against our regulations. Please feel free to put a email in or a service works request in.
Great. And now we'll move on to informational items. First on the agenda is Bike to Work Day. Oh, wait.
Item 7.
we got board approval.
Oh, yes, board approval of candidates. Stephanie, sorry, Ben, we have to do the board approval of candidate recommendations. How do we conduct this? Cami or Stephanie?
Cammy's going to address this.
Okay. What I understand needs to happen is when you determined the two members of TAB to do the interviews, the board, what we should have done is made a motion at that time to give them the authority to make the recommendations. They did the interviews, they have the recommendations, but you did not grant them authority to make the recommendations on behalf of TAB. So we need to go back essentially and have the recommendation made tonight with a motion from the board to accept the recommendations that the two who did the interviews came up with. So we don't need to necessarily discuss the recommendations, who they were, just maybe a synopsis of how many were interviewed, you've made your recommendations, so then staff has the approval to turn in the memo tomorrow that says you have made your recommendations. You have essentially found two people you would like to recommend to become your new TAB members.
Okay, I will make that motion that myself and Alex, who did the interviews, are going to make those recommendations on the rest of TAB for those two candidates moving forward.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Well done, TAB. We will make your recommendations known and pass that forward to City Council for consideration when they review all the board recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, Ben. Now we'll move on to information items. On the agenda is Bike to Work Day.
All right. Good evening, Transportation Advisory Board. My name is Ben Ortiz. This is your 2025 Bike to Work Day update. I know this is late. When I was originally going to be making this presentation, I wound up going home sick that day. And so I do apologize about that. And I just need to figure out how to advance this now. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what is Bike to Work Day? So this is an event that's actually organized by the Denver Regional Council of Governments. And the Denver Regional Council of Governments is a metropolitan planning organization, and they do regional planning for a 9-county region. Bike to Work Day, the region-wide event, had debuted in 1990, and so the 2025 Bike to Work Day event was the 30th anniversary for this event. The intent of the program is to encourage bicycling for transportation-related purposes, and it's just to show people that, you know what, you actually can use a bicycle for transportation. So last year, Dr. reported to us that they had approximately 15,000 participants, and they saved about 729,000 vehicle miles of traveled on the day of the event. So it's not an insignificant amount. So the City of Longmont has participated in this event since, pretty continuously since 2000, with the exception of a little blip around COVID. I was the event organizer for most of those years, dating back to 2002, which was when I started with the city, but not all of this century. So most of the city's hosted stations, they've all been located here at the Civic Center, in the plaza between the Civic Center and the library. And we have had another department host a Bike to Work Day event over at the Longmont Service Center, which is located on South Sherman Street. But their participation has been sporadic. they've hosted maybe 3 or 4 years over the past 20. It's something that they like to do, but apparently they don't have the staff to devote to it on a continual basis. So I thought I'd go ahead and report the numbers of riders we've had over the past few years. So this is kind of the tail end of COVID in 2022, where we had 81 riders come to our station over here at the Civic Center. Now, when I say 81 riders, I mean those are the people who actually signed in. So we do have people come and they'll ride in, they'll have pancakes, they'll have sausages, they'll have orange juice, but they won't sign in. Weren't able to capture them all, and so we think that the number is probably a little higher than this back in 2022. And I would like to highlight that those folks on on that tandem there, they used to be my next door neighbors down in Broomfield. But they had the good sense to move to Longmont, so I do miss them terribly. Anyhow, if you're watching, hey. So, in 2023, we had 82 riders reported. Who's that guy? He looks familiar. Oh, that's Taylor. All right. Well, he did pose for the picture, so it wasn't candid. So again, the numbers were about the same. So, but then in 2024, we had a slight jump. And, what I did want to report is that all these years we've had the Longmont Lions Club have volunteered to griddle our pancakes and sausages for us. People love their pancakes and sausages. And then we've also had the Longmont Bicycle Company. They're over here at 3rd and Main, and I think they're expected to move their store here pretty soon. They have offered to provide tech support for our riders. And then you'll notice in 2025, we had a fairly significant jump of 138 riders signing in. So what happened? Well, I think there were a few things that happened between 2024 and 2025 that had an impact on the number of riders that signed in. First off, back in 2024, we had a raffle for the first time. And again, it was just me pretty much managing that station. But if you came, you were you'd get a ticket, and then you could potentially win a good gift. And the gifts we bought were really nice. I mean, it wasn't just, junk. It was good, real quality bicycle equipment, lights, bells, locks, that sort of thing. And then, again, you'll see a large jump in 2025. And so I think, so back in 2024, we had one raffle, and that was in like 8:15, 8:30 or so. And what we heard from a lot of riders that they complained to us because some of those folks had to be there at work by 8 o'clock. And they told us that they could not participate in the raffle as a result of that. And so we heard them. And so we held 2 raffles this in 2025. We held one in the 7 o'clock hour, and then we held one in the 8 o'clock hour, sometime around 8:30 or so. But the raffle made a big difference in terms of our boost in numbers. But I think what one of the other things that made a big difference in the boost in numbers was that if you wanted to get a plate for food, you had to sign in. If you wanted to get a ticket to participate in the raffle, you had to sign in. So there was some good incentive for people to actually sign in, and I think that boosted our numbers. Another thing that really boosted our numbers were Kaylee and Cammie, and of course Caroline back there. Everyone starting with the k sound have all been extremely helpful. But last year in particular, because rather than me just managing the station, I had help. getting people to sign in, and then of course Kaylee was really instrumental in reaching out to the business community and bringing in a bunch of organizations that could come in and participate. They set up booths, and it was great. It was much more of like a festival type of an atmosphere, which was one that we just didn't have before, and that I did not have the bandwidth to do on my own. And, you know, for full disclosure, Kaylee had a lot of experience as a station organizer at Dr. Cog, so her expertise was really invaluable. And so, again, I had mentioned we had a raffle in 2024, and then we had another raffle, 2 raffles in 2025. And so I think those led to more sign-ins on our actual sheet. Not necessarily more participation. Maybe it did. I'm not really sure, but certainly more people who signed in. So, Winter Bike to Work Day. This year it's going to be on February 13th, 2026. Last year it was on February 14th, or this year I should say, it was on February 14th, or Valentine's Day, because bicycling is for lovers, after all. And so then you had your Bike to Work Day team, and then you'll see Phil Greenwald is there on the front. We could not possibly leave him out this year. And we also had one of the Ride Longmont vans come, and they have bike racks on the back of their vans, and Phil was demonstrating how to load a bike onto the van, and so that was also very helpful. And so we're going to try and get another van out this year, because it's just good PR for that program, which is going absolutely great. And I'd say that for this year's Winter Bike to Work Day, we had about 40 people participate. We held it here at the Civic Center, the Development Services Center, across the street. And we've had it outside in the past, but it's very dicey in terms of the weather, and I think people prefer to have it indoors. And so they like to come in and warm up, and so I think we'll repeat that for next year's event. So let's see, and that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this point.
Hi, Ben.
Yes. Hi, Gina.
Have you considered extending the hours of the event to be beyond like 8 o'clock in the morning? Because, people don't all commute to work at
Sure.
7 or 8 in the morning.
Well, okay, so we usually, are you referring to the Winter Bike to Work Day or both event, or the summer event?
Probably more the summer one, but, maybe both.
Well, the summer event usually starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it runs till 9. Our experience is that pretty much by the 9 o'clock hour, everyone is gone. So Dr. Cog does have options of several different types of stations. They have water stations for the evenings, for people when they're riding home. They can stop and get some water. They also have party stations. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Kate, have you had any experience with a party station? Could you describe that for Gina?
Yeah, hi, Kaylee Fallon, transportation planner. So essentially party stations are like afternoon stations. There's really flexibility in when those start. Usually see them start around 3 or 4 p.m. as people start on their commute back home. In my experience, we see a lot of that being hosted by restaurants, by breweries, by folks that provide food and drink. Of course, that's not to say that we wouldn't be able to host a party station in the afternoon, but that's kind of what the party stations are.
Well, those sound super fun. So I think you should do that next year.
We'll think about it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? No? All right, thank you. Oh, there is. Okay.
So you've been at them for a while. Does it feel to you like participation is increasing other than just like the getting more sign-ins, or do you think that it's just that people are actually signing in more?
I'm going to say both. it feels like there's more participation as well as, but because we added the incentive to sign in, we did get more sign-ins this year compared to last year. And so we'll continue with what we know works. But yeah, I feel like we are getting more participation. Bicycling is I don't know how to say it. You know, there was a ride called Critical Mass. You may remember it, and I feel like we're getting to that place in Longmont where the discussion is just really moving in that direction of human-powered vehicles, and bicycling is becoming more of a presence here in Longmont.
Thanks, Ben. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on to section 9, action items, and we have a December meeting cancellation.
Hi, yes. We just wanted to see if that was something with the holidays coming up, if you all were interested in making a motion for that. If not, you definitely don't have to.
I'm kind of curious about the meeting that's going to happen with RTD and all of those things. If there's a possibility that we can provide some input beforehand, and if that meeting when that would coincide with our next meeting.
Yeah. I think there's plenty of potential topics to have a meeting on in December that we can bring forward, and especially as we kind of set you up for January's meeting to focus on the work plan and onboarding new members. So I would say if it's a scheduling need to cancel, let's do it. Otherwise, there's plenty of topics and how to connect the city council meeting with your meetings, the new members. There's still going to be plenty of topics to discuss in December. And whether we bring some year-end updates in December or January or whatever early in next year to be determined. But I think our question was, are there scheduling conflicts that just we need to know about versus not having enough content to discuss?
I would be in favor of having a December meeting. I think it would be really nice to have like a discussion about what we're planning for 2026 meetings. In particular, like what is our schedule for all those meetings? It would be.
I think we'll
nice to
formally do that in January,
Okay.
but I think start planting the seeds of things to consider or things that we might, we can, that's why I think December could still be a useful meeting to plant some of those seeds or bring forward some documents to review in advance, things like that. That's why I said there's still plenty of content. So I think it was more just, like I said, if it's a scheduling conflict, we understand. It will help us adjust the January meeting if we know we can't have a December meeting. Otherwise, I think we can set the stage for next year properly and better if we do hold a December meeting.
And the new board members will come on in January.
January.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the meeting will be December 8th still. So like I'm in town, I'm available. I would say a meeting would be helpful. Also because then, we usually go through our end of the year, what we've done, and then that goes to council, and then January can start with a work plan. Hopefully, as long as we have a January meeting as well. So I'm very keen on still continuing.
And I'm also available. I don't know if anybody else is not available or available. All right, we will continue on with our meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to comments from the board. We will start from the end.
I wanted to thank the staff for the engaging meeting today. We've had a lot of very interesting topics. I checked the truck route map, and I saw that there aren't any truck routes through the historic East Side neighborhood, so something we need to start thinking about is how do we enforce trucks following truck routes. And I'm also very pleased to hear that RTD is getting our transfer situation worked out sooner rather than later. And I'm excited for our next meeting in December.
I guess I second everything that board member Starrett. That's it. I would just say Ross, but all right. But then also I want to thank staff for a very meaningful World Day of Remembrance last week. I was there. I didn't know what to expect when I showed up, but it was actually quite beautiful. So, good job.
Thank you, Kyle, for bringing up my email. I appreciate that. I was going to bring that up, but since you've already discussed it, thank you for that. I really appreciate the thought and the trying to train, I guess, contractors to consider all road users and making sure that everyone is safe to move through their specified routes. I wanted to report that I had the first meeting for the Linking Boulder County Advisory Committee last month, and it was super cool. There's 15 members from all across Boulder County. It's very, very diverse pools from all different types of community members with all different needs from transportation. So I'm really excited about the process. We're scheduling our next one for early December. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. But yeah, it was great.
I just want to thank staff for all of the information presented tonight. Very helpful. And I want to encourage everyone to positively envision Skyride Longmont.
Okay.
I want to thank the public for attending today's meeting. Your input is invaluable, and every time that we have public coming to our meetings, a lot has come to fruition. So thank you all for having the time and the courage to come up to the microphone. I know it can be daunting to be on that side of the microphone, so thank you so much for doing that. Staff, thank you for the presentations. I'm really excited about a lot of the things that were discussed tonight, especially the Quick Solutions for Neighborhoods project. That is amazing. That is something that I know a lot of people in this community are going to be excited about. So thank you for listening and coming up with solutions to be more proactive about hearing what our neighbors are looking for. So thank you so much for really thinking outside the box on how to address some of those concerns. So kudos to that. Really looking forward to how e-bikes and e-motos come to education and how we start to talk about it amongst the city and the staff and the businesses that operate and sell e-bikes and e-motos, so we can all participate in the conversation, because we're only better if we bring everybody to the table. So thanks for having that. Really appreciate the presentation on the bike to work. That's amazing. Great job, Ben, for getting all of those people to come in and sign up, and the photos look great. And there's some creative ideas on how you can use a bike without having to use a car. So I saw a bike trailer with trash cans, which I've only seen in Longmont before. For weeds and flowers. For weeds and flowers. But thank you all. Great meeting tonight. Looking forward to December. Do we have any other comments? No? Okay. Before we adjourn, is there any items that we need to propose to future agendas? No? Okay. If there's no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.